So let's begin to look at the famous 5 ways. 5 ways being 5 ways that you can prove that God exists. The first 3 ways are related. They're a family of arguments. The 4th way and the 5th way are unique. They're different from the first 3 ways, but the first 3 ways are related. And certainly, I don't know if Aristotle was the first one to come up with these sort of arguments, but certainly very important source for Thomas. And in one way or another, all of these first 3 ways draw from the argument about the unmoved mover in Aristotle's metaphysics that we looked at. The first argument from motion, the second argument from the nature of efficient cause, and the third argument from possibility and necessity. All of them are reminiscent of the things that Aristotle said in a fairly sketchy and suggestive way. In the metaphysics here, things are more thoroughly set down. He says this to begin the argument from motion. The first and more manifest, in a way the most obvious of all the arguments, is the argument from motion. It is certain and evident to our senses that in the world some things are in motion. This is what it means to look out at the world in this a posteriori, from experience way, and then argue back to something, the cause, the hidden cause, the metaphysical part of it. This is not metaphysical. To say that there are things in the world in motion is simply a description of the world as we find it in our ordinary experience. Now, whatever is in motion is put in motion by another. Now, that's not so obvious as that things are in motion. That is, whatever is put in motion, whatever is in motion has been put in motion by another. I think, in fact, there are many people who say it's simply wrong, but it does have an intuitive appeal. For nothing can be in motion except it is in potentiality towards that which it is in motion, whereas a thing moves inasmuch as it is in act. For motion is nothing else than the reduction of something from potentiality to actuality. So, if something is in motion, it is in a state of actualization, having actualized a potentiality. But for that potentiality to be actualized, something must have made it move from potentiality to actuality. Nothing can be reduced from potentiality to actuality except by something in a state of actuality. And you can see where he's going with this. If something is actually moving, it was before only potentially moving, and something actually moving had to put it into motion. So, therefore, he continues a little later, whatever is in motion must be put in motion by another. If that by which it is put in motion be itself put in motion, then this also must needs be put in motion by another, and that by another again. You can see how we seem to be moving towards an infinite regress, where we say that everything is in motion was put in motion by something else, and this is going back and back infinitely. And if there's no first motion, it says, but this cannot go on to infinity, because then there would be no first mover, and consequently no other mover. Therefore, it's necessary to arrive at a first mover. Does that sound familiar? Put in motion by no other, an unmoved mover, and this everyone understands to be God. There are things in motion in the world. Everything we assume that is in motion was put in motion by something else, so that whatever put the one thing in motion was itself put in motion, etc., an infinite regress. But the crucial point, I guess, in this first argument from motion is that this cannot go on to infinity. That if there wasn't a first mover, there wouldn't have been a subsequent mover, and there'd be no motion in the world. So Thomas is suggesting that it's necessary to posit a first mover, which would of necessity be something that moved itself. And this everyone understands to be God. That is, if we're talking about some sort of being that has the capacity to move itself without being moved by anything else, then this we understand to be God.